Hello and welcome to Good or Bad. It's time for another video game review! And what am I reviewing, you ask? Well, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, of course. Yeah, I'm surprised you had to ask, it's in the title and all. So with the release of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a tie-in game was inevitable. Developed by Beanox and published by Activision. Not off to a good start, are we? Beanox developed the tie-in game to the first Amazing Spider-Man film, and it wasn't anything special. In fact, I would go as far to say it was quite underwhelming. Enjoyable at times, but still underwhelming. But has anything changed this time around? Well, yes. Yes, it has. The game improves upon a lot of the areas the first game fell short on, but it's still not great, and certainly not worthy of the title The Amazing Spider-Man. More likely slightly better than average, and certainly more fun than the original Spider-Man. Let's start off by talking about what is probably one of the most important features of a Spider-Man game, the web swinging. Back in 2004, Spider-Man 2 set the standards for web swinging, by having the webs actually attached to buildings. And if there was nothing to swing from, you fell. And I think pretty much all Spider-Man games since then have not done this. I have no idea why, as it was a great feature. But now the web sticking to buildings has returned. And in all honesty, it's the best web swinging in a Spider-Man game since Spider-Man 2.
Now that's fun!
Okay, I should point out that it's not perfect. It seems to only be the core swinging where webs stick to objects. When web zipping, like this, you can see it sticking to the air. Another thing I really did like is how they mapped the controls for web swinging. I did play this game on PC, but I used an Xbox 360 controller. And basically, the left trigger is for the left web swinging, and the right one for the right. And this meant that you actually had to time them much more accurately than you had to in any previous ones, and concentrate more to effectively swing, well, efficiently. I did find this annoying at the start of the game because I really wasn't that good at web swinging then. But I never thought I'd actually get to say that. But after a while of playing the game, I actually did get pretty good at it. And obviously all the footage I have captured, I'm going to be terrible on. I haven't captured it yet, so I don't know, but I bet I'll be terrible on it. But yeah, once you get the hang of it, it really is a lot of fun. Also, when I first started playing the game, the web swinging felt a lot less acrobatic and much slower than its predecessor, but don't worry, that does not last long. Near to the start of the game, you unlock upgrades such as boosts and slingshot, which make the experience so much more fun and visually pleasing. While we are on the subject of web-related travelling, another thing I didn't think I'd ever get to say, the web rush mechanic has returned from the first game, and in case you don't know what that is, it is where you hold down whatever button it is mapped to on whatever device you're playing it on, and you enter slow motion, with all the different points you can instantly web zip to displayed on screen. I have heard some people complain about this feature, but I don't think it takes anything away from the game. And honestly, if you don't like it, just don't use it. But I think it helps a lot to get where you want to, precisely as Spider-Man would. And also enables you to analyse the enemies that may be surrounding you, which will happen by the way, and you can choose where best to attack. I think the web rush feature was included to help simulate how fast Spider-Man can think and react, because obviously the average player cannot react. No one can react as fast as Spider-Man can. You know, if he were real, which he isn't. I'm not some madman who goes around thinking Spider-Man's real. Not at all. Everyone knows it's Wolverine that's real, not Spider-Man. Anyway, moving on. The web rush feature was included in both the first game and the second, but was it changed at all for the second? No, not one bit. It's exactly the same. It's a complete carbon copy as it was in the first game. But is that a bad thing? Because it worked really well in the first game. In fact, it was one of the best features. So why fix it if it wasn't broken? Now let's talk, aren't you getting it? Your fists, melee combat. So, melee combat. It's very similar to that of the Batman Arkham games in that it's all about attack and counter. And it's not as refined and fun as the Batman games. The animations certainly aren't as good as the Batman games. But it is at least challenging. The timing is much more punishing than it is in the Batman games, which is at least something. The melee combat AI is quite poorly implemented. Sometimes the enemies just stand there and wait for you to attack them, but then they will re-engage in the fight. However, while this is annoying when it happens, it doesn't happen that much. The stealth in this game is, again, similar to the Batman games. You go around sneaking up to enemies and take them down. Although with this being a Spider-Man game, the takedowns are more unique to Spider-Man. You know, like if you're crawling on a wall, you'll pull them into the wall, smack them, and then stick them to the wall, or you'll stick them to the ceiling if you're on the ceiling, you know, blah blah blah. Yeah, web stickingness happens, basically. Again, just like with Melee, the AI is quite bad. Like sometimes there will be enemies that just walk continuously into a wall. It does take something away from the challenge, as you could imagine, because you can just walk up to them, make as much noise as you want, they won't notice you, and you just take them down. Another thing that makes this stealth system feel a lot like the Batman games is the Spidey sense vision. It's really similar to the detective vision in the Batman games. However, it is very useful, and it wasn't in the first game, and I can definitely say that it enhanced the stealth experience in this one, for me at least. As for enemy types, there really aren't that many. There's the generic thug, which can pick up weapons like guns, baseball bats, knives. You can web pull them out of their hands, so that is useful. But it's only really guns that will change how you approach them. As for other actual types, there's these flying machines, speedy people. I think the game actually calls them speedies. Not sure why. But yeah, even then they're not that different. You just have to web pull them to enable to, well, beat the crap out of them.
Some days you just got it. Always feels good to take out the trash.
What I do really like is the sense of multiple playstyles. Well, that being the two it offers. One being head first, you know, no stealth. Two being stealthy. But yeah, it is kind of a first that Spider-Man would offer that, except it was in the first one just not as in-depth as it was now. And the stealth was much easier in the first one because you could just be on the ceiling and then just pick them up with the web. Now you have to go down and actually engage them in a stealth takedown much closer, which increases the risk. Ooh, boss fights! I bet there are some amazing boss fights in here. No, there aren't. In fact, they all follow the same formula and they're all really easy. Basically, you dodge, stun, and attack, and repeat that until you win. There is not one boss fight in this game that is actually fun. While we are on the subject of fighting, let's talk about the damage the suit can receive. It basically gets things like small cuts, but what I really like about it is how you receive the damage. It isn't like in the Batman games where it is scripted to appear at certain times. Instead it happens if you make a mistake and get hit or shot. Or, well, you take enough damage. The suit will reflect that. Visually, it is not implemented that well, but I do like the aspect that it's real time. So yeah, I suppose this would be a good point to start talking about the suits you get in the game. You unlock several different suits as you go through the game, during the side missions, which I will go into later. But if you pre-ordered this game, you will have access to the Threads DLC pack. And basically, it gives you a whole bunch of different suits from the Spider-Man universe. Two of which are from the previous movie and game. But it's not just a visual change like it was in the first game. Instead, they actually do alter your stats, like some will be better at melee damage, others will be better at stealth, others will be more fire resistant, electric resistant, and you know, stuff like that, which I think that's great that it changes the stats so it actually gives you a reason to wear that one over another one. Like when you come to fight Electro, wear the electric one. Even though the fight is really easy, but you get the point. Another thing I like about the suits is that they all have their own level, and basically you wear them do missions, fight enemies, and the suit will get XP and level up, and it will be better at whatever advantage it had before. So if it was really good at stealth takedowns, it will be even better after it's leveled up. Ooh, now for side activities. The game is not short of them. There are tons of different crimes and events that pop up at random, and they are infinite as well. Unlike the first game where they stopped after you beat the game, which I still think was stupid, but whatever, they're infinite now. That's what matters. These range from things like gangs having shootouts with cops, people being trapped in burning buildings, citizens in dangerous situations, needing help from just small things like they're stuck under a bit of rubble, or, well, yeah, that is a small thing, being stuck under a bit of rubble. It's also small having your head shot at, isn't it? You know, what's a large-scale disaster to me? The apocalypse, I suppose. Not a little bit of rubble. But also the thing is, when you see these people that are trapped under the rubble, it's pretty obvious they could just crawl out. And, okay, even if they are, I don't know, crippled at that point, Spider-Man doesn't need to lift the rubble up. He could just go... and that's it! They're out! Look at it, there's clearly enough room! Whatever, I think I'm clearly... going too far into that tiny little side event of the game. So, moving on. What I really like about these events is if you fail them, that's it. Those people are dead. There's no restart. You failed, you move on. But yeah, sure, there are the same events that will pop up throughout the city from time to time, so you do get to retry them in a sense. But those people before, when you failed, that's it, they're dead, they're gone. The press will hound you for that.
I'm just asking the question. Is it coincidence Spider-Man shows up at a fire and fails to put it out? Or was he there because he said it?
So yeah, I think that's a really good feature, that you can lose some battles. As well as those events that pop up, you have the fixed, limited events, such as cleaning out Russian hideouts, where you use stealth to take out the armed Russian gangs, and secure the data, which will unlock you a new Spidey suit. Other activities include things like races and photo challenges. They're both pretty obvious as to what they are, and really, that's about it for side activities. Right, with all that said, the side activities, especially the random events one, do get repetitive, because they're all small, not really fleshed out, and yeah, just so repetitive. Like the bomb one is exactly the same each time. You know, you see the bomb, you put it on your back, you throw it into the sea or whatever. Saving people from dangerous situations are usually just rubble, maybe some electricity, or a train. In fact, that's actually a funny one. I've just got this idea that it would pan out differently than it would. First, I'll show you how it really does pan out, so...
Hey, Spidey. George Stacy respected you. How about a hand?
Okay, let's ride off into the sunset.
But here is how I imagine it will pan out each time. Now just imagine Spider-Man didn't undo or didn't know that the carriages were still linked at the time. Yeah, wouldn't it be funny if it was a game feature to actually unlink the carriage before you pulled it away to save him? Otherwise, yeah, what you just saw would happen. And I think that would be really funny. I don't know whether that's just a sadistic mind at work, but yeah. I think, yeah, just funny. But back to the point! I went off on a tangent then, I won't do it again. Well, I probably will, because, well, it's me. So let's face it, it's probably going to happen. But anyway, yeah, back to the point. Again, we're staying on the point. Yeah, the side events really aren't fleshed out enough, and they're quite short, and it's the same one over and over again for each one. And yeah, you just get sick of them after a while. I mean, I have got 12 or 13 hours out of the game so far, and I can be honest, the actual main story will take you about 3 to 4 hours. But obviously I planned on reviewing this game, so I had to try out a lot of the other features it offered. And yeah, that did bump it up to 12 to 13 hours, but I have got sick to death of the generated events and stuff, because it's just the same one over and 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 over. Have you got the point? Again. Over again. Yeah, so moving on now. I think we've covered that pretty well.
Let's see if a hero or a menace will crawl from the dark.
The hero, or what's the kind of action I could do for a menace? Maybe an angry face, so we'll try that again. The hero or menace system. Basically, the hero or menace system is a feature in the game where if you succeed at the random crimes that pop up, you increase your hero status. Doing the crimes will increase you to be a hero, but if you fail them, so that's failing them, like you accidentally let them die or you fail to show up to them, it will drift into menace pretty quickly. And just look at the map. It is overwhelming, the amount of these events that pop up. And on one hand, it is annoying because you just can't keep up with them. There are just so many and they expire really quickly. You can't do all of them as well at the same time as doing the story. On the other hand, being Spider-Man or a superhero in general would be overwhelming. There would be so much crime. You cannot save everyone. You will fail to show up to most of the crimes in the city. And the press will hound you for it, which they do in the game. I think they always did in the comic books, especially with James Jonah Jameson. I think I said his name right. And so yeah, the game does do that really well, so I'm really on two sides about this whole hero and menace system, which is kind of fitting since it's hero or menace. Ooh, looky here, graphics. The graphics are not the best I have seen in recent times, actually in the past 5 years really. The lighting is quite good. The rest of it? No! It looks awful! The character models in this game, for the most part, look ugly. Like, I mean really very extremely ugly. This does seem to be most common in the generic NPCs or enemies, but I even think for a model like Peter Parker, it should be better than that. Come on, that's pretty bad. And that's Peter Parker, the main guy, and he looks terrible. Spider-Man, on the other hand, is really good, but that makes sense since he's the one you're going to be looking at for the majority of the game. The model for the Kingpin, though. Look at it! It's just so terrible! I get the sense that the Kingpin is meant to look grotesque and ugly and just ew in general. And yeah, the bad model really does help that. Oh, and well done, game, for reciting the most repetitive fat jokes in the world.
You're so fat I could have you arrested for 10 pounds of crack. By which I mean butt crack. Zing! Just to be clear. You're so fat, when you wear a yellow raincoat, people yell, "Taxi!" You're so fat your high school yearbook photo was taken from a helicopter. You're so fat you're the same height lying down. You're so fat when you go camping, the bears hide their food.
The Harry Osborn model, look at it. It's awful. It looks terrible. It doesn't get much screen time though, but it does look pretty bad. When he's in the Green Goblin suit, well, it's a different model obviously. The Green Goblin does look a tiny bit better, but not much. It's still pretty bad.
Oh God, Harry Osborn, is that really you?
Does it look like me?
I suppose you could sum up my point on the graphics very simply like this. What the hell? It looks like this. This is a 2014 game, and it takes large Spider-Man characters like Harry Osborn and makes them look like that? What the hell? That is stupid. I expect, no, demand more care to be put into character models for 2014 games. I mean, actually, even 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said that these models look terrible. Maybe like, I don't know, 6 years ago, it would have looked decent. Actually, even then, no, because Metal Gear Solid 3, which came out a lot longer than that ago, looks better than this. So, I reiterate, what the hell? And also, the web effects, when you web someone to a wall or a floor or the ceiling, look terrible. I got this game for PC, so I want to quickly talk about the level of care put into the PC version. For me, the game runs relatively well. Very few bugs. Like the minor AI ones I mentioned earlier. A few texture glitches, stuff like that, but nothing game-breaking. But I went through forums of other people's experiences on this, and not good. Some of them complained that the game wouldn't even launch, kept crashing, no control input. The list goes on. It's like Arkham Origins all over again. And while I have not experienced any first-hand experiences of this, experiences, yeah, that makes sense. I haven't experienced this. I'm not saying that word again. I haven't seen this. I played through this game with the Xbox 360 controller, as mentioned before, but I thought I would check out the mouse and keyboard controls as well. They are quite awkward. I mean, you have to hold left shift to initiate a web swing while pressing, you know, mouse 1 or mouse 2, which is mouse 1 to left, mouse 1 to right. One thing I saw and noticed was that you cannot see the keyboard and mouse control mapping in-game. It just comes up with the Xbox 360 controller list. To see or actually map different controls to the mouse and keyboard, you have to exit the game, go onto the launch menu, and then go on input mappings. You have to just exit the game to check the PC controls once you've mapped them to it. If you forget what you mapped it to, or you forget what the default one was, you can't check in-game. That is ridiculous. It's stupid. I mean, what kind of half-assed developer did that? Beanox would be the answer to that. It's just ridiculous. It really is. And for me, okay, it's not a big issue because I play with a controller, but a lot of people use the mouse and keyboard, and rightly so. I mean, a lot of people spend a lot of money on a gaming mouse or a gaming keyboard. And here, they can't even check what controls are what in-game. I mean, okay, I suppose you could open the Steam overlay and Google it, but, you know, you shouldn't have to do that. Like, you shouldn't have to exit it to view the controls. That is just ridiculous and incredibly stupid. Okay, now for this. The official Steam store page lists this as the feature. Actually, this is the first feature they list. Play as Peter Parker. Now, I was wondering, how are they going to do this? Is it going to be a bit like playing as Bruce Wayne in, like, Arkham City or Arkham Origins Cold Cold Heart? No, it isn't. Basically, tell you what, I will play it real time while recording it. Okay, so you get to walk around the house a bit. Listen to what Aunt May has to say.
This is what happens when corruption starts to get exposed.
And
first
that's
the task
really
force,
about
then Ravencroft. You mark my words. Wilson Fisk is next.
Yeah, play as Peter Parker. This is some great Peter Parker gameplay. Oh yeah, he could not have done a better job than this. Okay, I am exaggerating, but only a little bit. That's the annoying thing. Just a tiny bit of exaggeration. The other sections where you play as Peter Parker just involve walking around a room, talking to a few people, and then sod off to play Spider-Man again. That's it. And it wouldn't bother me usually. But the reason why this bothers me is because it's listed as a feature on the store page. As the first feature. The hell? And okay, you might defend it by saying, but you play as Peter Parker in costume as well. But in that case, obviously you play as Peter Parker in the costume. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. That's like saying you play as Bruce Wayne all the way through every Batman game. Of course you do. So you can't really defend it by saying that. If they list it as a feature, I expect some good gameplay as Peter Parker. But of course, no. We get walking around, talk to that. We don't even get to take a picture. Yeah, he's the photojournalist, or the photographer really, and you don't even get to take a picture. You just get to walk around, use the dynamic dialogue system where you press X, Y, or B to talk about the different dialogue options. That doesn't really go anywhere, to be honest. I'm surprised they didn't list that as another massive feature, because you just have to cycle through the different dialogue options and then you click end and it'll carry on with the cutscene. Whereas it could have put all that in the cutscene and make it more fluid. There is a lot to be annoyed at with this game, but it does have some fun sections at least.
A killer still roams in the guts of this city, and you let him walk away. Have you done your best to stop him, to bring this murderer to justice?
Stories! The story of this game, at least the developer said it would not follow the same story as the film of the same name, because they didn't want to spoil the film if people played the game first. And I thought that's a great idea, because so many movie tie-ins spoil the movie if you play the game before you watch the movie. So yeah, I thought that was great, but when I played this game, while there are other sections and other villains that aren't in the movie, it does have plot lines from the movie. Not very well explained, but it does have them. I'm not going to say what they are because I want this spoiler-free, but yeah, this game does spoil events from the movie. And I wouldn't be annoyed at that, but the developer specifically said it wouldn't spoil them. So it's one thing, someone going into the game knowing it may spoil the events, and it's another thing entirely when they go into it thinking, right, the developer specifically said it won't spoil the movie, so I'll play it. Then guess what? It spoils the movie!
Never forget, what you do defines who you are.
While we are on the subject of story, let's talk about the voice acting. It's a mixture here. I mean, the voice of Spider-Man, voiced by Sam Riegel or Regal, I don't know, it's probably one of them. Sorry if I got it wrong. But, yeah, he's great at it. He returned from the first game, and in both of them I thought, yeah, that's what Spider-Man should sound like. He is really good at that. I want to see him in animated movies. I mean, when I read a comic of Spider-Man, which admittedly isn't that often, but when I hear his voice. It's much like, he is Spider-Man's Kevin Conroy, essentially. And if you don't know who he is, he's the guy who voices Batman in a lot of animated things and games. But whatever, moving on. The Green Goblin. This game is a kick to the nuts of any Green Goblin fan. It really is. Because he looks terrible, he sounds terrible. Just listen to the voice.
From now on, I take what I want, no matter who I have to kill.
Sound familiar? Well, if you played Injustice, it will. It sounds exactly, well, maybe not exactly, but it sounds a lot like Injustice's Joker.
So big, so dumb.
The other good voices are Kingpin's voice, Kraven's voice, which is really good, and Black Cat's voice. All three of them are good. Overall, I will give this game a 5 out of 10. Because what it does well, it does really well, but likewise, what it does badly, it does really badly. And as well as the really bad stuff, it does have minor annoyances such as awkward camera movement and NPCs that are poorly implemented, so much so they feel like they have no purpose in being there. So this really doesn't feel like a 2014 game. It feels like a game from, I don't know, 2008 maybe? Maybe 2006? But anyway, yeah, it can be fun, but it can be annoying. See you next time.